Welcome, my lovely little online family, once again to our regular weekly gathering on the virtual settee of YouTooSpain. We're outside by the pool today. Today we'll be talking to three specialist guests all about buying property in Spain and protecting your cash. There'll be plenty of top tips about what to look out for and, very importantly, how not to get ripped off. And I've always got something exciting for you at the end of our time together, so stick around for that. If you've slept in, you know who you are, and you're watching the recording of the show afterwards, you can find the time codes and chapter headings along here and in the video description below. But no, watch the whole chat, don't you? Come on, gather round. And it's time for our little tune. Let's have a little dance before we start. Here we go. Yes, give thanks to the groovy wizard Lee Spreadbury for our little tune. Thanks, me darling. And there's a link to his excellent YouTube channel below. Have a listen. He's one of the family. Now, before I bring in the guests, whose turn is it to buy me a coffee? It's yours, isn't it? You know how to do it, don't you, my lovely? Yes, there's a link in the video description below. I know you're a bit naff with technology, aren't you? But get somebody to show you how. It's easy once you get the hang of it. Or even the best thing to do is set up a regular payment on the Patreon website. That's specially for close members of the family like you. And that's where you can get loads of little extra videos and stuff. It's very groovy. Tell you what, if you can't find the link down below, YouTooSpain.com. There is the website. I've told you all about that because you like reading, don't you, rather than watching sometimes. Loads of information and articles and all of the links on there that you need to help you move to Spain. So you can come over here and join me. So join the mailing list on there and I'll write to you every month. All right, my lovelies? Good. Now, don't forget to get the advice I told you about on the Monday live chat. Were you there on Monday for the first one? There was a big crowd watching, wasn't there, from outside the cafe, the virtual cafe. I'll save you a seat in the cafe next week and we can all chat about exchanging your currency to euros safely and at the right time. And one of our guests today on the settee will explain it a bit more. He's from Smart Currency Exchange. They're friends of the family too. And they've got a link below, of course, and on the website just for you. And you can get a free account with them that helps the YouTooSpain family. Okay, lovely. So, and of course, I've got some prizes to give away as usual for one of you. So that'll be for the best questions and comments on the live chat. So without further ado, let's meet our wonderful guests one at a time. First of all, it's Matthew from Langeron Property. There we go. How are you doing?
Hi,
Good.
Skatz. How are you?
Very good, thank you. It's lovely to have you back. We had you on last year, didn't we?
Yes, great to be back.
Good stuff. So we'll chat about houses in a minute, but next to join me on the settee is a local boy from just down here in Competa. It's Jason. How are you doing, Jason?
Hi, very good, thank you, very good.
Lovely, lovely, smooth radio voice you have there. There we go. So I say you're a local boy. You're a property photographer amongst many other things, and a musician, as everybody can see by those guitars behind you. How long have you been living over here?
Well, this time round, it's since June 2019, but I lived in Alicante from 1987 to 2003.
Wonderful. So we'll have a good chat about what you've learned from property from being a photographer in about 10 minutes, but let's bring in our final guest of the day. It is Mayrick from Smart Currency Exchange. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
So you're joining us all the way from sunny England. How is it? How is it doing over there?
You know, it's nice and bright in London. I read the forecast and thinking, oh, it's going to rain all weekend, but so far so good. Surprisingly, we've had some excellent weather. Probably not quite as good as Spain, but there we go.
No, probably not quite. No. So now you are all here, I'm going to actually usher a couple of you over into the virtual kitchen area while I chat to you individually. So let's keep Matthew and just say bye for a minute to Mayrick and Jason. See you in a mo. Okay then, Matthew. So let's go. Just briefly before we start, tell us about Langeron and Orgiva properties and the area you cover.
Yeah, well, Landlord and Look of a Property, we specialise in the area between Granada and the Costa Tropical, so the Alpujarra, Licrin Valley, predominantly, but we do cover properties down along the Costa Tropical from and even into Nerja and Malaga province. So anything along between Granada city and the coast, really, in that part of the world.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, a lot of people's first experience of looking for property in Spain is either on the telly or online from the big property websites, isn't it? But what can estate agents like you tell us that property websites can't?
Well, it's a really good question, actually, because a lot of people, you're right, they do start searching online on the big websites or the property portals. I think one of the main problems with those is partly it's almost like child in a sweet shop syndrome. There's so many properties that trying to pick out which ones are the right ones, which ones are not, is very difficult. And in addition, the main problem for most people comes down to the legals surrounding properties in Spain as well, particularly if you're coming from the UK, Northern Europe, the US, Canada, for example, where the legals of properties are I wouldn't say more straightforward, but are certainly less likely to be shady.
Mm-hmm.
And, so the websites will very rarely tell you that sort of information. And really, I think the property portals are there. If you look at the volume of people who are viewing the property portals on a daily basis, compared to the number of property transactions that actually go through, you can tell that they are really kind of like a magazine for everyone to flick through. Some of the property portals as well, we've had examples where we're not actually advertising on that portal, but they're showing our properties and they're just scraping them from our website and from other portals. So quite often the information on there is very out of date as well. So I guess to answer the question, how can an agent help? Well, an agent will also know about properties that are not publicly advertised. We certainly have a lot of those where, for various reasons, people don't want to publicly advertise their property for sale, but they still want to sell it. And so we have access to properties that are not publicly available, but also probably the most important thing for people is we can have a really good discussion with each person about what their own needs and requirements are, and to educate and inform people on what they're actually buying. You can quite often see a property that, for example, could be described as a legal property, but it's actually only legal as a nave or an agricultural building rather than as a house of vivienda that you can live in. And so it's those sort of things. It's the in-depth information that an agent can give you that the websites aren't going to be able to give you.
That's, let me just say hello to other people on the settee, our guests on the live chat today. Hello, family, including Phil Quantrill from Phil and Kimberley in a very soggy France. John Bentley says, morning, Skatz. Glyn says, good morning, Skatz, and all hello there. And AK Mitchell, that's Anthony and Kerry from a monsoon-like France today. A few people in France today. Finally, a relief from the heat wave. And Steve Knowles, SK Lifty. Says good morning, and Dangerous Sod, that's a great name. He or she is saying I'd be worried about getting squatted, and he said it put me off before Spain need to get a grip on thieves. So the question that I already had to ask you was, how can my lovely family here tell which estate agent is best or honest?
Well, I suppose the simple answer is to look for an agent who is a member of a registered professional body. There's two main ones to look for in Spain. One is SIRA, SIRA, which is the Spanish International Realty Alliance, and the other is Realtor, which is a worldwide membership of professional agents who subscribe to a very strict code of conduct and put themselves in the public view of this is how we operate, this is our code of conduct, and this can place trust in us. Sadly, in Spain, unlike many countries, but in Spain in particular, there is no barrier to entry for becoming an agent, property agent. So literally anyone can open up tomorrow and say, yep, I'm an agent and I'm going to deal with probably the biggest asset that you have, which is quite scary. And I'm a big advocate of trying to create legislation and professional membership and qualifications for all agents. So those are kind of the two main things, or the first main thing is to look for someone who is openly being a member of a professional body and subscribing to a code of conduct. I think secondly, the other tip that I would give to people when looking to choose an agent is actually look at the content that the agent is putting out into the public domain, be that through YouTube channels, through social media channels. It's my personal view. I'm not sure this would protect anyone specifically, but I think if an agent is just putting out sales post, it kind of smells a bit of commission breath. Whereas if they're putting out genuine, informative content that is useful for people, and they're offering that free of charge to everybody to say, hey, here are the things you can get caught out on, here are the things to look out for. If they're giving that advice freely, the chances are that that agent is likely to be someone who is open and honest about the realities of buying a property in Spain. If they're just putting out sales, it's likely that they either don't know the ins and outs or aren't particularly interested in it. So those are kind of my two main tips for looking for an agent to deal with that you can trust.
Excellent. We had it from social media. We had a question from Sarah Evans. Good morning, Sarah. Hope you're watching. And she says, I'd like to understand how typical or possible it is to appoint an agent when purchasing, please. Plus, what would be roughly the cost of this, and what would they do for their fee? So you're not talking about an estate agent, though. This is different, isn't it?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, this is something that is fairly typical in a number of countries where you have buyers agents and sellers agents, and then you might have a realtor or a broker that deals with both parts. So it's not unusual, certainly in the higher end of the market, the €1 million plus market, you will often appoint a buying agent. That's something that is less common in the lower end of the market. But it's certainly possible to do, and if it's something that is suitable for you, works very well for people who maybe are coming from abroad or from a long distance and are not would like the help and support that a buying agent can help them with. So it's definitely something that is available. Costs really depend on the individual requirements. For example, if you're searching for a property over the whole of Spain, the costs are going to be significantly higher than if you're searching for a property in a smaller defined area. But usually, when it comes to instructing a buying agent, you would pay a retainer fee or an upfront fee to cover their costs, and they would normally then take a percentage on the purchase price, usually around 1 or 2% as a guide. But it really depends on the individual requirements. So it's certainly, yes, you can appoint an agent. Small plug, I have another business we're involved in called Find a Home Spain, which does exactly that. But yes, in essence, it is definitely possible to appoint a buying agent, and sometimes can be quite useful, even if you have seen a property that you like, is to appoint a trusted professional agent to even look at the property or negotiate on your behalf and try and find the ins and outs of anything that might be hidden.
Excellent. Sounds like a good plan. Now, I said I was going to have you just for 10 minutes to start with, but I think we've got a few other questions, so we'll just kind of extend yours, because these are viewers' questions from the internet. So let's get on to this one, which is quite important as well. Are there still issues with owners having their properties demolished? This is Barry from Unitech, I think. If finding out that some have been built illegally, and the only time you discover it once you take possession.
Yeah, good question, Barry, and a big concern for a lot of buyers. The simple answer is yes, there are still people having issues with their properties and even being demolished. There was a case only probably about a month ago now, just down on the coast, but between myself and yourself, actually, where some buyers had bought a property. I seem to recall it, I can't remember the exact details, but around 15 years ago. And they had subsequently extended the property. They believed from their builder that everything had been done correctly. And then it turned out that it hadn't, and they didn't have the right permissions, and subsequently they did get their property demolished. Or the great majority of it. I think they were left with about 20 square meters that was legal that they could live in. So in essence, yes, it does still go on. I think not to the extent that it has done in the past. And also for buyers nowadays, as these things have become more commonly known, it's much easier to protect yourself against buying something that could be demolished. But there are still a lot of developments, in particular large developments, where they were built outside of the urban zones, and undoubtedly with a bit of corruption and backhander money going on, where places have been built illegally. So in essence, it is still going on. It is still possible to buy a home where that could happen, but there are certainly ways you can protect yourself against that happening nowadays.
Great stuff. So just before we get Jason onto the settee, any top tips? Just maybe one for now. What's your top tip? And then we can, when we get you back on all on the settee together, we can have some more.
Yeah, I think I would say my top tip is actually speak to agents. Don't rely on the internet for finding properties in particular, and also please don't rely on the internet or in particular for certain types of Facebook groups for getting legal advice on buying a property. or any type of advice, I think. It's certainly good for opinions, but not always necessarily facts, because quite often they contradict each other. And particularly in Spain, where it varies, so different laws vary from region to region and from town hall to town hall. But in essence, talk to people.
It's true. When we were looking for a rental property, actually, that we don't, and this isn't my property, by the way. This is a stock photo, very, very nice. But anyway, when we were looking for a rental property, we found that go to the estate agent in your local area, where look around which area you want to live first. Scope out the region and the town, and then once you've got that, then find your estate agent. And the property that we found here wasn't listed at the time. So, and they knew the owner. So there you go. Yeah, so I think it's very important. You've got to be here. You've got to have your feet on the ground and face to face with an estate agent, and they'll go, yeah, actually, I think this one's not listed, and but we know just the sort of thing that you're looking for.
Yeah, so certainly buying property is it's a people business. It's not. I mean, you can transact it online, but it's not like buying a book off of Amazon where you can just return it if you don't like it. It really is a people business, and a good agent will help you find stuff that you might not even have thought about, but they'll get a real understanding of your needs.
Great stuff. So that's a very good start to this week's gathering. Thank you, Matthew, for now. Let's send you off into the kitchen, or you can go and sit on the virtual patio out there if you want.
I shall enjoy a coffee.
Lovely. See you shortly.
See you soon.
Right, let's drag Jason out into the settee in the garden. Are you still okay there, Jason?
Yes, yeah, all good, thank you.
Lovely. Hope you've been fun. Have you been washing the virtual dishes in the virtual kitchen?
No, I've been trying to figure out why the virtual coffee machine is not producing virtual coffee. But,
oh no.
Whilst the cat hassles me for the milk, which is part of the joys of the morning here in Spain.
Yes. So your speciality is property photographer, amongst many other things, and you've also bought property in your time here. Tell us, what mistakes have you made and learnt from in looking and buying and selling?
Well, I've been pretty lucky actually in general with this kind of thing. I've bought and I've rented, and I've bought for my mum, and it was very interesting, one of Matthew's comments there about actually going and being on the ground. And when we got the house for my mother, It was just a question of actually, I just drove around and asked people. She found the area that she wanted to be in, which was further north in Alicante, and said, "Oh, I really like this. This has got this valley feels like magical for me," and all the rest of it. So I was like, right, okay, let's get in amongst it. And so we drove around, had a little look about, and you know, there were a few estate agents signs, but I said, "Do you know what, Mum? Let's go for a coffee in the bar in the town sort of square of Orchetta, which is the where she ended up buying." And there were just some old boys in there playing dominoes, and I just asked them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you know, my daughter's friend has a place, blah blah blah," which it wasn't even on the market, but she did want to sell it. They just hadn't got round to listing it, and that's how we got that house for my mum, which she lived in for 10 years. So it is absolutely the case that that being on the ground, that there is no substitute for it. And the things that you see online are they're an indicator of the sort of the general price, and they're a little bit of a taster of some of the stuff that's out there. But yeah, be on the ground. That's the top tip.
I noticed that on websites, like, I mean, a Place in the Sun website I've noticed, and it seemed like on the program, everybody goes on the show and then offers a price that's 10 or 15% lower, and I think on those kind of websites they price them a bit higher anyway, just because of that, and it gives people the impression that you can actually get 10 or 15% off if you go there with a big wad of cash. But
which it depends. That very much depends on how long a property has been on the market. But like some of the, I'm going to be really cheeky and offer them 200,000 for something that's advertised at 280. It's not cheeky. It's rude, and people don't respond. You know, like you're never going to win that way. And plus, when they say as well on that program, we've got our budget is 200,000. That is actually forgetting the other approximately 15% that they're going to have to spend on the top of that. So I think those programs, they're interesting, they're entertainment, but they exist to be entertaining.
It's part of what brought us over here, actually watching those kind of programs. But yeah, it's good to have that extra little bit of knowledge. So do you work for more than one estate agent as a photographer?
To be perfectly honest with you, I very rarely work for estate agents. I normally work for private individuals who want to sell their houses. And the part of that is that on a personal level, I tend to work more for people of who are selling more expensive houses. But very often, the way that the estate agent business in Spain means that a house will be listed with multiple estate agents. So in a lot of cases, they don't want to make any kind of investment whatsoever other than a couple of quick snaps on their phone, because there's a possibility that if estate agent A hires me to do really nice photographs, then estate agent B may well actually clinch the sale on estate agent A's investment. And it's not just estate agent A and estate agent B, it's estate agent G, H, I, J. And in some particular houses, there's a house here in Compita that has, I think, about 6 different signs on it.
Wow.
And so I think that's a little bit of a problem. And Matthew's case is a bit different because he is more specialized and is obviously a bit of a leader in the field, but it can be a bit of a bun fight, really. And so I just tend to work for the individuals who want to sell their houses, and then they'll disseminate those to the estate agents. But or quite often they'll put them on places like Idealista or Fotocasa, which are websites that private individuals can list their houses on. So those are very worthwhile getting.
Good. So what do you think people look out for when they're looking at general estate agent photos, and what do you think they don't see?
I think I think one of the problems is that a lot of estate agents close the curtains or shut the shutters when they take a photograph on their phone of the room, of a bedroom or a living room. And this can be for a couple of reasons. One is that their phone doesn't have the dynamic range to show anything outside, because it's so much darker inside than it is outside, so it's just burnt out. But it's more likely to be that they've decided that they don't want to show what's outside. And that for me is a bit of a red flag, or it would be if I was in the market for a house, because you want, if you want to know what it is that you can see through the window, because part of the reason people move to Spain is to be outside. So if you've got your neighbour 2 feet away, or if you've got a fantastic view down the valley, like that's important information that you should have. So on the whole, if you're looking at a property and all the curtains are closed and or the shutters are closed in the photographs, I would just keep scrolling, because it either means that the estate agent or the person who's taken the photographs isn't really that bothered, or it means that something pretty horrible is outside there.
I've seen some amazing ones that the first photo that they show, the one that they've chosen to show off the first property for people who are scrolling by fast, is just a picture of a wall with a dirty sink or something like that.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
A table outside with 4 chairs all stacked up like that.
Plastic ones as well.
Plastic ones, and a canvas across the some unidentified stuff in the corner, and a yellow hose snaking.
That's it.
It's shocking. And when you've got things like that and they're being advertised on estate agents' websites, to me, that is an indicator of the level of service that you're likely to receive, and the level of integrity that you're likely to encounter throughout the process. If you have, if you look at a photograph of a property and you go, these people haven't really been bothered, have they? Then to a certain extent, you're likely to get that throughout the purchase process. And there are, there are estate agents who willfully hide stuff regarding the legalities of things, and who just don't send the information that they promised to send. Because, as Matthew said, the situation in Spain is such that people aren't obliged to register with any kind of trade body or pass any kind of professional exams to be an estate agent. And so it's full of people who haven't registered with any trade body or passed any exams. Some of whom are all right and have integrity, but there's a lot who might not.
Might not. Nice diplomatic way of saying it. And so one little question before I get Mayrick out here. Any sort of tips and tricks that you use to make properties look more appealing? I mean, because you're dealing with high-end properties, I suppose it's. I've noticed on your photographs, you know, a table outside will have a bottle of champagne on it, and all of the glasses, maybe some orange juice and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll use little flashes of colour, a bowl of fruit, things like that, and it just makes basically the property world in Spain is very competitive, so you have to stop people scrolling, because they'll be on their phone and go, "Ooh, look at that." So the techniques that I use are to have things that will create a little pop of colour, like you say, orange juice or bowl of fruit. Interestingly enough, placed in the sun at the end of every episode, they're always sitting at a table, and the host will say, "Well, have you decided?" And there will be some orange juice on the table, because it's a little pop of colour, and they never drink the orange juice. It may not even be real, but so I do that, and I always try and balance. I always make sure that I balance the outside light with inside light, so that when you're looking at from the inside of the room, you can actually see what's outside. Just because I think that is a good service for the person selling, and a good service for the person buying, because you want to know. You don't want to
absolutely, yeah.
and go, oh, actually, like, I didn't realize there were 6 wheelie bins outside the doors there. Like, you want to know, are the 6
Yeah, I know. Like this picture here, is it?
Yeah,
it's a pretty good one. I'll get it out of the way. I mean, that's the sort of thing that you'd take, I think.
It is.
They've used a bit of a wide angle there, I think.
I would always use a wide angle to get as much in as possible. It does have the byproduct of making things in the foreground look larger, like swimming pools sometimes.
Yeah, that's good.
That's just sort of like.
And also, that one tells you, presumably, that's the sun setting, which would make it a south-facing garden. I think that's a handy little.
That is also handy, assuming that's not an Australian photograph.
No, it's definitely in Spain.
Is it? Right, okay. But the other thing I always try and get people to do is to remove their personal photographs from the walls, so that the person viewing it can actually put themselves into the, they can far more easily imagine themselves in that property and go, oh, I can really see myself living there. Whereas if there's a photograph of someone else's kid that's like 2 foot by 3 foot above the fireplace, that's just a little bit trickier. So that's it. But I would say that for your viewers, the top tip is, when the curtains are shut in the photograph, have a look at something else.
There's some questions on the live chat, which let's just field those so that they don't fly past and I miss them. We'll get to you in a minute, Glenn James, when we get Matthew back on again. But this one is from Interlager Dave. He's Interlager. The agent I bought from did some great photos and a really good video of the house. Helped me through the whole process. Excellent service. It's a shame I can't mention them here. Do you do videos as well?
I used to, but it just seemed to be something that people wanted less of, because of the fact that they would put them out through Idealista and Fotocasa, and there wasn't really enough time to do a walkthrough video. What I always do video wise is I include a 59-second pull away drone video, so that people can actually see the house and the context in which it sits in relation to other things, so they can see oh look, actually there's a road there just out of frame. Like, these are things that people need to know. And it's good that the agent did good photographs, and because that is very rare, and it is a shame that you can't mention them, because I'm not sure.
You can mention them in the chat. Go on, mention them if they're good at their job. And why do photos of property show a hat hanging on the back of a chair or some other fixture? There's one behind you.
That's funny, actually. I would never have a hat hanging on the back of a chair.
No.
Although it depends what it is, what the property is being marketed as. If it's a property to buy, I wouldn't. If it's a property that I'm photographing that's going to be a holiday let, like through an Airbnb or similar, booking.com or whatever it is, then exactly I would, John, because, and I would also have a paperback, generally open on its, like, with its face down, and a pair of sunglasses and possibly a bottle of sun oil. And the reason for that is exactly the same as the one I was mentioning about removing the photographs of the kids, is that you want to be able to project yourself. That photograph has to look as though you or a family member has just walked out of the frame. And that's the whole holiday thing. And so there is an entirely different approach, really, between photographing for sale and photographing for holiday rentals. But the hat on the back of the chair, absolutely, in a holiday. Great call.
Brilliant. So I hope everyone's having fun on our lovely city here. I'm going to push Jason out just briefly into the kitchen, and we'll see you in a bit.
See you soon.
And now, so pass around the biscuits, somebody, won't you? Let's get Mayrick out here onto the settee. Here he is. Hi. Good. Is Matthew behaving himself out there?
Oh, he's been making coffee. And, you know, I love a good biscuit. So
Fabulous.
pass them round and bring it back again because I've not had breakfast yet.
Oh, no. Well, listen, last time I had somebody...
Well, it's 8:35. No, it's 9:35 actually. But when we started, it was 8:35. So
it was, wasn't it?
Sunny, rainy London. Now sunny London, rainy London, sunny London. So.
So last time we had somebody on from Smart Currency Exchange on the set, it was Alistair, and he came over to join me, but he's off at a family wedding today. So let's have a little introduction to you. Meyrick, this is the YouTooSpain family, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and Smart before we chat about houses and money and how they connect.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I guess very brief overview of Smart Currency as a company. We are the largest privately owned currency specialist here in the UK. We help thousands of customers every year complete property transactions, both buying and selling into Europe. And I guess our main focus is around de-risking those transactions and helping those clients understand the process and essentially making sure that the money lands in Spain or France, wherever you're going to buy, safely and securely. So that's essentially our mantra. And I think if I looked at some of the stats this morning before I came on this call, I think we've got something like 25,000 individual private clients that continue to use us each year or each month to send money backwards and forwards.
So let's get on to some of the questions then. So how does currency impact me and my lovely family here? Because the cost of property doesn't change, but money does all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good starting question. And I don't know, maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not obvious, but when I bought my own flat here in London, obviously I paid for it in pound sterling. I live in London and I earn in pound sterling. So let's say I paid £350,000 for this flat, this property, then I always know that it's going to cost me £350,000. And, you know, I send the money to solicitor and I buy the property, lovely stuff. But if you're doing this over in Spain, and let's say you agree a price of 350,000 euros, yes, the price in euros will never change because that's where what you've agreed the price to be. And I don't know, maybe because I said maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, but it's always worth just sort of using this as a starting point to say, yes, you've paid 350,000 euros, but obviously exchange rates are moving all the time. And of course, that then impacts on the value of your euros, the cost of your euros in pounds, right? Because if the exchange rate's shifting all the time, it's doing this, exchange rates move every half a second, so it can be really volatile. Yes, you're still going to need 350,000 euros, but the cost of those euros is constantly changing. So you're effectively trying to hit the moving target. Just to give you an example of this, if you took the exchange rates from the start of March up until probably last week, you've actually seen a change of over 6% in the value of the pound into the euro. If you quantify this, so 350,000 euros, the cost to buy 350,000 euros back in March was, say, £287,000. Last week, that changed to £305,000. So a difference of almost £18,000. And that's one of the things that you sit back and you think, oh, wow, okay, yes, 350,000 euros is what I needed. I didn't necessarily realize that that's how much currency could impact me. So this is where we always start, and we sort of make clients aware to understand. So, well, okay, fine, that's your budget in euro. What does that look like in pounds, and then how are you going to manage that?
And that comes on to the next question. Why not use the bank instead?
It's a good question. And I'm going to reference Matthew here. And he said this lovely little soundbite, which I'm going to steal from him. And he said, buying property is a people business. I couldn't agree more, not just from the fact of the value of speaking to an estate agent, the value of speaking to a mortgage broker, the value of speaking to a solicitor or a lawyer. Same thing. You're looking at those kind of fluctuations, £18,000 difference. You know, that potentially has a big impact on your buying power, your budget. Does it mean that you can no longer afford the nice apartment, nice property with a big pool? like you're sat behind there, that does that difference in the currency exchange rate affect your budget so much that actually it can impact you, and ultimately it's your dream to buy a property. So definitely a people business. And I'd say one of the things that a currency specialist is really good at is speaking to people to help them understand that currency implication. So again, looking back at that £18,000 difference, what does that mean for you and your budget? Does it mean that, as I said, it's going to impact you on the location of the property that you buy, so on and so forth. And what we'll do is we'll speak to each individual client to help them understand this, concept. And then importantly, help them understand their budget in both pounds and euros, and ultimately come to a solution whereby you can effectively remove all risk out of the equation. So one of the products available, and again, this is something you won't find at the bank, this is something you will find in a currency specialist like us, is known as a forward contract. A forward contract allows you to lock in the exchange rate today for future delivery. So you're effectively pre-buying your currency up front. And often what we'll see is that someone will pay the deposit. So they agree the property, the price is in euros, will pay the deposit, and at the same time, will execute a forward contract for the completion date. So what you're doing there is you're effectively saying, right, I've agreed the property, it's €350,000, and I know that the equivalent of X is in pound sterling, and that budget makes absolute sense for me, and that's why we're buying on that principle. I've paid the deposit, so I'm committed to buying. I'm in that journey. Completion is 3 months' time. Now, the thing that we want to avoid is coming to completion and being £18,000 out of money, trying to scrabble around the back of the sofa, trying to find that. So it makes absolute sense at that point to use something like a forward contract, whereby you can lock in the exchange rate at the same time as paying your deposit for the completion. Therefore, exchange rate's fixed, no problems at all. Doesn't change, no endless up and down. It's fixed, absolute budget certainty. And, it doesn't really matter if the exchange rate goes up and down. You're buying peace of mind, you're buying security. And that's one of the reasons that certainly, you can use the bank if you want, but you're going to be missing out on these kind of conversations that I think are really powerful and really helpful in terms of buying a property and making sure that property journey is successful.
That's right. And banks don't change their rate as the rates change. They tend to fix a rate for a day or for part of a day or something like that. They show those the exchange rates as you go into some banks, and they don't change that regularly during the day, whereas you're doing it by the second or by the 30 seconds as they change.
Yeah, absolutely. So we price off the live market. So you look at the Google rate, that's essentially where we buy and sell currency. So we can get really good exchange rates, very competitive exchange rates, which the banks necessarily, if you're going into the branch and you're speaking to the cashier behind the till, they're not going to have access to that. Equally, they're not necessarily an expert in their profession. They can't give you the guidance or commentary, even just to bounce ideas off each other, questions, silly questions, well, not silly questions, but basic questions such as, what's an IBAN and how do I actually move money to Spain? And is the notaire going to be asking for X, Y, and Z? Those kind of questions is the value of speaking to somebody. As I said, Matthew alluded to that right at the beginning, saying it is a people business. Those are the kind of things that the banks aren't necessarily going to be helping you with because they're generalistics. And that's fine. They serve a purpose. But particularly when you're talking about large sums of money, having a conversation with somebody is invaluable.
Let's just put this nice comment up from Ian Fleming. I've opened an account with Smart and another currency company too. Smart far better, and I've ditched the other one. Jack Wiggs doing a great job for me. He was actually my advisor when I did my exchange last year.
That's really good to see. And it's so powerful for us to know that we're doing what we're doing right, especially when we have Trustpilot reviews and so on and so forth. And often our trading team will get named in those Trustpilot reviews, and it's really, really powerful to see that. That's something that's great to see. And when I'll be in the office on Wednesday, and I'll go and speak to Jack and say that he was referenced here. So thank you for the comment.
Yeah, see if he remembers me. I'm sure he'll remember my surname. It's quite unusual. There we go. So, and if anybody does want to become a customer of Smart Currency, by the way, as my plug. I did it earlier. There's a link below which will help YouTooSpain out as well. It's a specific link that'll get you into a free account so you can speak to your own advisor. And yes, use that link. It will really help this show. One more question then before we get everybody else out. Should we wait until we put a deposit down on the property before talking to you about currency?
Yeah. Again, really good question. So, as I said in that example just there, potentially locking in your exchange rate is useful when you're putting down the deposit, because then you're committed to buy. But absolutely, my advice to anybody here is to get registered, speak to somebody like a Jack or someone of equivalent to start talking about this early on. We often recommend individuals to have an account, to speak to somebody about currency if they've got a viewing trip booked in. So at that point, you've got that viewing trip booked in, you're off to Spain in the next couple of months. Speak to somebody about currency, because as started at the start of this call about fluctuations, and that can change the value of your buying budget. Even just getting that concept in your mind early doors is valuable, because then it helps you to start thinking about this kind of thing. If you go into Spain, I mean, put it this way, you never buy a property without knowing its cost, right? And from my perspective, there's no point me looking at properties if I don't know if I can afford them. If I don't know how much I can spend, then what's the point of looking at this property over here? And what's the point of looking at that property over there? So having this information up front ahead of the viewing trip, or just before the viewing trip, or even during the viewing trip, to be able to call back in to someone like Jack and say, Jack, we've looked at 3 different properties today. They're priced at X, Y, and Z. What does that mean for pound sterling, and can I afford it? So I would always say, if you've got a viewing trip booked in, come and register with us. It's a free account, free advice. They're not going to charge you, not obligating you to do it. And if you don't buy, then you don't buy. But at least you go to Spain with more knowledge. You're empowered. You understand your budget, and I think that's important.
Excellent. Right, let's get everybody back in for a general chat. And there we go. There's Matthew back, and hello, Jason again. Right. We're all together. All hutch up on the settee, and let's see. Let's see if there's any questions on the live chat. I've seen quite a few things coming through. This is one about leaving money to your kids. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. If I buy a property in my name, become a Spanish resident, can I leave it to my kids? Do I need a Spanish will once I become a resident? Who can answer that one?
Yeah, I can help on that one.
Go for it.
Absolutely, 100%. If you buy a Spanish property, get a Spanish will in place immediately. The inheritance laws in Spain are particularly difficult to navigate. Even if you are completely fluent in Spanish, they're still difficult to navigate. Depending on where you're coming from, and I think most of us are tending to come from the UK, Skatz, so we'll take that as an example. If you have any assets or a will in the UK, you can make a will in Spain in order to make sure that all the inheritance of your Spanish assets fall under the terms of your UK will. And to be honest, that's the easiest way to do anything if you're looking to leave things to your kids. I can give you a personal example on that. I did I was looking at the sort of situation in relation to Spanish inheritance laws, and it turned out that my ex-wife from 20 years ago, because she was the mother of my eldest child, would actually have inherited something over and above my current wife. The existing wife. And so that was something that's been quite difficult to have left behind, I think. So absolutely 100%. If you're buying a property in Spain, ensure you get a will done properly to make sure your wishes are recorded and dealt with correctly.
Did you have your hand up there, Jason, to add to that? Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. No, I was absolutely agreeing with Matthew that that it's absolutely 110% essential that as soon as you've got is you buy a house or anything changes in your setup, that you go to a notario and get your will sorted out. Lots of notaries, notarios, as they're called here in Spanish, will have somebody there who speaks English. But generally, wherever you are, there's a little local gestor or fixer who will take a couple of €100 off you to help smooth the process. But it isn't essential that you have the translator or the fixer. What is essential is that you do the will.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add to that, Mary?
No, I mean, advice here in the UK is the same. It's make sure you've got a will.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I just have to
there
pop this
are
one.
because otherwise there are obligations in the Spanish system, and I think also it might well be the same in France, where you can't write your children out of your will, for example. They are legally obliged to get 25% or more if you write it in. But so there are conditions like that you need to know about. So you absolutely need to have them.
I think we'll get a notary and a lawyer on the show one time. It's about time. I've not had a lawyer on the show in all this time for various different reasons. Right, notice that question for the group. You have to play guitar to be invited onto Chat by Skatz. It's not obligatory, but of course, anyone who plays guitar is a far better person and deserves to be here. There we go. And oh no, I had a question from Glyn earlier on. And I said we were going to do that. When we visited an estate agent at the end of March, they said if we see a property with another agent, let them know and they can sort it out. Is this common and right? Would that involve a fee, Matthew?
It's quite a difficult one to answer because different agents work in different ways in different places. But I think Jason mentioned that earlier that a lot of agents work on a multi-agency basis, or will the same property will be listed with 5-10 agents. I mean, usually I would say avoid that property like the plague, because there's usually something horrendously wrong with it, which is why they're listing with lots of people. For example, we only work on an exclusive basis, and there's various reasons for that, which I won't bore you to tears with now. But in essence, there's also the multi-listing system, which there's various multi-listing systems in Spain, and we do work on that. So quite often, if you found an agent that you really know, like, and trust, then I would suggest it is often possible for us to up to another agent who's marketing a property, or on the multi-listing system, then we work with agents where we will work together on certain properties. So the bottom line is, yes, it's possible. It will often depend on the individual circumstances. And in terms of costs, we work with professional agents where we will split commissions between ourselves. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, there are still many agents in Spain who charge buyers' commissions on top of the sellers' commissions, which can be up to 5% of the purchase price in many cases. And they'll quite often hide those. So in terms of costs, I would check with the agent first before you get into that, to make sure there's nothing hidden.
Mm-hmm. Jason's web said, answer to my question, audio was breaking up. It wasn't on here, so it'll be on the video, Jason, but basically it was about having a will. Do you need a Spanish will? The answer was a big yes from everybody. So have a listen back to the recording. What I'll do is I'll put the time codes on later today, so if you want to have a look at and skip to that particular time code, you'll be able to find that answer. And this one from Phil. We've seen properties with different agents with different meters squared. Some include and some exclude patios and terraces. How can one confirm the proper documentation has been completed?
I'm guessing that one's for me to answer again.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah. Fairly straightforward. There's again, this could create a whole new show, but you've got kind of two registries of properties in Spain, which can often people get confused about. One being the catastral and one being the registro. The catastral is absolutely 100% only for tax purposes. Please do not ever rely on the catastral for any amount of proof of what the square meters of a property are, or even the legality of a property. It can be listed as vivienda and actually not be a legal property at all. So the catastral will give you a measurement which is specifically a measurement and a type specifically for tax purposes. That's how your IBI is calculated, or your council tax. The registro will have what is documented and written in the deeds or in the escritura, and it's easy to obtain a nota simple. Any good agent will have a nota simple available, which is a shortened version of the deeds, which describes the exact square meters that are registered as having been built. Mm-hmm. There is a slight caveat to that. We deal with a lot of country properties whereby they have had extra things built that they shouldn't have, and so may not have the correct details in the escritura, but quite often something that we deal with on a fairly regular basis is we might agree a sale whereby a condition of that sale is that the seller corrects the deeds to ensure that they are listed absolutely correctly, and an architect measures them, and we get the deed changed to reflect what is correctly there. Mm-hmm. So what the big confusion is often that the square meters are registered differently in different places, and dependent on where the measurement is taken from, that can be why you get differences in the measurements. But ultimately it comes down to, again, talk to a good professional agent and they will explain it and give you all the different measurements and explain why they're there.
Mm-hmm. And the nota simple, apart from being through an estate agent, if you're not through an estate agent, where can you get that from?
You can get one from the registro, your local land registry, but you need justified reasons to get it, because all property data in the UK is protected under data protection, unlike in the UK, for example, where the land registry is a public document. It's not in Spain. But if you ask an agent for a copy of the nota simple or to see details of the nota simple, if they're a good agent, they will have one. We get one with every property that we list at the time that we list it, because without that, I can't guarantee whether a property is legal, what's there, what the situation is. So I wouldn't be doing viewings on a property without a nota simple.
Mm-hmm. Jason just wanted clarity on the will question again. Can I leave the property on my will to my kids if I'm a Spanish resident with Spanish will? You can note on a Spanish will that you want to use UK law. That's a point that I think one of you made earlier. Provided
you have a UK will, you can say that you want the UK will to be the sort of the default will. So yeah, you can.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add to that, Jason, or the last point?
No, just saying, yeah, essentially you instruct the Spanish will to mirror the UK one, and so that the UK one takes primacy, so long as it conforms to Spanish law. Mm-hmm. Like going back to the point where you can't write your kids out, for example, completely.
Mm-hmm. There we go. And Phil says, how can you check for debt on a property? Is that another one for you, Matthew? You seem to be having all the questions.
Yeah, that's okay. they're property related, so no problem. The simplest way is on the nota simple. If there is a debt registered against the property, it will show on the nota simple. We, for example, will get a nota simple on day one, which will show if there's any debts or charges on there. And then usually another nota simple just before we sign to ensure that nothing has been added subsequently. So any registered debts will be on the nota simple.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I'll come back to a question for Mary, because you've been sitting there patiently. What happens if somebody's already bought their property in relation to currency exchange? What next?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Obviously, when we think about buying a property, we often just think about the big transfer, sending the money and making sure that it lands in Spain and we get the keys. But often you'll have smaller or regular transfers that you need to make, such as paying your bills, your council tax, you're paying the pool guy, whatever it might be. And there are tools out there that pretty much every currency specialist will give you access to, whereby you can automate these payments. Nice and simple. You set up a standing order effectively with the currency people, and they'll shift that cash over your Spanish account, your French account automatically each and every on a set day each month or quarter. And one of the neat things that you can do, which I think is particularly relevant if you've got a mortgage on this property, is that you can fix the exchange rate for up to 24 months. So if you've got a Spanish mortgage and you need 800 euros to land in your Spanish mortgage account each month, then fixing the exchange rate on that is potentially quite interesting. In the same way you can fix your mortgage payments in the UK, you've now fixed your overseas mortgage by fixing in the exchange rate. You know that it's only going to cost you £650 per month for the next 2 years, for instance, as an example. They're generally referred to as regular payment plans. So that's something that most currency specialists would offer. And it's always worth, just for ease, if anything, and time saving, just to have a chat with them about that. And another thing, which again, some people don't always realize, is if you're selling a property and you want to move the money back, again, the currency transactions move in both directions. So it's always worth just checking in now and again, speaking with people, and seeing where they can help, where they can add value.
And you could do that with pension or with like investments as well, if you've got them coming in monthly.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you don't have a UK bank account, you can effectively direct your pension payments from the UK directly into your currency account and move those across, again, automated, or hold the balance in there and then move it as and when you wish. Again, same thing for dividends and investments, so on and so forth.
Brilliant. That's a good top tip then. Jason, have you got any more top tips?
Only just to say to Merrick's point there, because I move money in from the UK periodically, and I did yesterday for a certain amount, and the idea of actually doing a transfer from one bank straight into another bank is like taking a big bit of that money, ripping it up and throwing it in the sea. Like these days, seriously, if anybody's watching this and does that, like stop, pull away, go and have a cold shower.
Give it to me instead.
Like, get in touch with Merrick or somebody else. Like there are obviously other transfer facilities available, but do not put your money like straight from Lloyd's into your Caixa bank account or something like that, because that really it's horrendously wasteful. And not only that it takes a really long time as well.
Yeah.
The currency specialists absolutely they don't earn nearly as much as the banks do, but they earn it far more efficiently. So you need to do that.
Glyn's following on this. Can you fix regular payments, i.e. pension, for 24 months? Sounds a bit mad, doesn't it? Because you at Smart Currency Exchange aren't getting the money. You're spending your own money basically to buy that chunk of currency right at the beginning, and that's how you fix a rate, isn't it?
Generally, yes. So you can fix the exchange rate in, I believe, up for 24 months. Obviously, it depends on the currency pair. If you've something slightly more obscure, then maybe not 24 months, but certainly with pounds and euros and dollars. Again, that's another, even dollars into euros is another alternative. But alternatively, basically, you can lock in that exchange rate for up to 24 months. And therefore, every payment that comes through at the exchange rate that you've already pre-agreed. And it's excellent for budgeting. You've got absolute certainty that you know that you've got X amount of pounds sterling each month is always going to equate to Y euros each month, regardless of whether the exchange rate goes up or down. And it's, again, looking back to the idea of having certainty and control over your budget, which is the most powerful part of it.
Absolutely, yes. While Matthew's waiting to think about any more top tips, there's a couple more questions on here which are really interesting from Eric. Does the Smart Exchange work with UK state pension or just private?
Provided that the pension provider will send the money to your currency account, then there's no reason why not. So we receive money from pension providers. I believe we can receive money from the state pension. Ultimately, when you sign up for a currency account with anyone, they will provide you with banking details in the currencies that you need. And then you take those to the person sending you money and saying, pay me here.
There you go. And here we go. This is an important question. Is your money safe with Smart Currency? How is it protected?
absolutely going to say yes. No, of course. No, it's a really, really important question. And again, not just related to smart. This is important for any currency company that you use. The two things to look out for: certainly, you must make sure that your currency company is authorized by HMRC. So if you basically what you need to do is if you go on the website, scroll all the way down to the bottom, all the way down, and you'll see that like small print basically at the bottom, and you'll see these numbers and the authorized by. Smart currency is authorized and regulated by, and you'll see the relevant numbers. You can go on the FCA register, put in those numbers, and you'll see that smart currency has the relevant permissions and authority to do so from the regulatory body, the Financial Conduct Authority here in the UK, to do so. And that is paramount to make sure that you're using a company that's authorized and regulated, and that's the governing body behind. In a similar way, Matthew was talking about using SRIA, CIRA, I think is how you pronounced it. In the same way that your estate agent is part of a governing body, your currency company is authorized and regulated by the FCA. And what that means is effectively that if the company holds client money, they're obliged to hold it in a ring-fenced client money accounts. Effectively, if that currency company goes bust, because the money's held in a segregated client money account, it's not included as part of that business's assets. So it gets returned to the sender. It doesn't get swallowed up by the creditors. It's returned to the sender. And here at Smart Currency, obviously, we keep all client money in the client money accounts. And that's the level of protection that you get with using a service. But I think that the top takeaway from that is make sure that your company is authorized and regulated by the FCA.
Brilliant. I feel safer already. So, Matthew, any more fight? We've gone over the hour now. Now I know that I could sit here and chat all day by the pool on the settee, but let's have a final top tip from everybody, starting with you, Matthew.
Actually, for buying a house, I think my top tip is always make sure you get good quality legal advice before entering into a purchase contract. And the reason I say good quality legal advice is I often see on Facebook forums and things like that, people saying never use the legal advisor that the agent recommends. And in a lot of cases, that's probably correct. However, I often deal with cases where we're dealing with properties that might be off grid, for example, and I get lawyers from a city somewhere else that keep asking for electricity bills on a property that's on solar. They don't understand water rights, all of these things. So actually get good quality legal advice. And sometimes the agent might actually know the best person to deal with. For example, we deal with 4 or 5 different legal advisors, and we'll often put people towards the correct legal advisor for the type of property they're buying. Leading back to the one of the first questions about things being demolished, just make sure you're really getting a good quality legal advice, because someone a long way away from the location you're buying might not know the ins and outs of that development, and it could sometimes that's how people get caught out, is because they've gone online. They've taken some Facebook advice on where to get a legal advisor, and that legal advisor doesn't know the ins and outs of the location that they're buying in. So my main top tip, get great legal advice.
Great tip. Just like to say hello to Sean, expat in Matheron, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. Top man. This is Sean's thing to do, but I'll do it. And okay, Jason, a top tip. And in the meantime, there was a question for you from John Bentley. What do you feel about agents using poor quality photos and videos taken on a mobile phone? It's a massive turn off for me.
I think basically it's an indicator of the entire level of service that you're likely to receive from that agent. Just scroll on by, basically. Yeah. Right. And that kind of goes into my other, as part of my top tip really would be if the curtains are closed on the windows in the shop, scroll on. But actually the top tip would be, wherever you possibly can, look at a house that's only listed with one estate agent, do so. estate agents with or houses that are listed in multiple places, multiple different estate agents, really like there are going to be so many problems associated with that purchase that you're better off wherever you can looking at places where there's one exclusive estate agent, because that estate agent will work so much harder for you, because they've got nothing to lose, and everything to gain. So that's the top tip, really.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I've got a little top tip. Go and see a property at different times of day, because you might get taken there during the day between 2 and 4 when everybody's asleep. And then actually what happens at 4 or 5 o'clock, after all the workers return, you suddenly get jackhammers happening outside your property, or the town just suddenly gets noisier or something like that. It's always good to visit at different times of day. So another top tip from you, Mayrick.
Yeah, I mean, I would say top tip for currency is don't chase the rate. As a soundbite for you. Often, I speak to so many customers and they say, "Oh, I just want to get the very best rate," or I don't know, I think it's going to go higher and higher and higher and higher. And the reality is that the way that these markets move, the way that currency moves is so fast, it's so volatile. Trying to predict is almost impossible. Yes, you can look at long-term, medium trends, but the reality is I have no idea if it's going to go up or down tomorrow or during the week. It do whatever it wants. It's like a roller coaster. So if it makes sense, if your budget makes sense in pound sterling, do it. You're buying a property here in Spain based on the value of X because you know you can afford it, and it's a dream, it's an aspiration. Don't get bogged down in trying to chase exchange rates, because it's just going to become a distraction. And ultimately, speak to people. I think that speak to everybody. Get as much advice as you can from anyone and everyone.
Great tip. And watch the Monday live show on YouTooSpain, because that's all about. Some of it's about chasing the exchange rate, but I do encourage people to actually, be secure. It's about safeguarding yourself against that. And I show people the live exchange rates, and I show you all, my lovely family, how to be safe with it, because in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, the currency has gone from, I don't know, the pound against the euro was the pound was 1.45 at one point, I think, and it's been as low as 1.07, I think was the right rock bottom. It was almost equal. So being safe with it, because that makes a tremendous amount of difference in terms of the value of the property in euros, if you or whatever money you're putting across there. So watch that show on a Monday, 1 o'clock Spanish time. There we go. Any more final top tips from anyone before we wave you all goodbye off the sofa?
I think I would just like to sort of reiterate some of the things Jason said. Actually, it's if you see really poor quality photos, no video tours, things like that, it really is a good indication that the agent probably doesn't care that much. So if they don't even care about taking a good photo or creating a good video, they're certainly not going to care about whether you buy a property that's legal or not.
Brilliant. Anything else, Jason?
No.
There we go.
Same page there.
Maybe we should give out a prize then. I always give out a prize. Sitting here on this lovely little settee, sometimes I forget, but does any one of our any question that stands out for you that deserves a prize, if you can remember? We've had quite a lot.
I think the one about the will stands out for me, because I come across so many people who buy a property, we advise them to get a will straight away, and you speak to them 6 months later and we'll get round to that. It's one of those things. Unfortunately, it's the one thing we can all guarantee in life. We are all going to reach the point where we need a will, but we always think it's never going to happen, and it is definitely going to happen. So 100%, I think that's a great question.
Yep.
There we go. That was Jason's Web. I think Jason's had a prize before. You're good at
The hero
with
dies in the final chapter, don't they? In every story.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's very true. And maybe we'll give one to SK Lifty. He's one of Sean from Matheron's friends. Let's put down SK Lifty. I'll make a note. If you could send me a message, SK, and also Jason from Jason's Web at info@YouTooSpain.com. And I'll need an address, a postal address, to send your prize to. And I'll be giving out a prize to people who give questions on YouTooSpain's community Facebook group. So do that on there, or the Facebook page. I've got a page and a group, but one of them's public and one of them's private. I'm not even sure what the difference is. I bet Jason can answer that one. What's the difference
Between public and private? But if it's public,
yeah, well, a group and a page.
Between a group and a page, a group is a controlled kind of discussion area, really, where everybody can post different things, and a page is something that represents a business, and the page owner can control who posts on there, but generally it's only the page owner that posts things that are visible. As far as Facebook is concerned, in terms of the visibility of the information that goes on there, then the stuff that goes on in groups, particularly if it's set to public, is actually much more it's more prioritized by the Facebook algorithm. Facebook pages, because they tend to be owned by businesses, are unless they're quite large and generally have a lot of interaction in the comments underneath the posts, are deprioritized by Facebook unless you spend money by boosting them, in which case they all of a sudden appear again. Quite often, if you've got a Facebook page and you just post information up that doesn't elicit any kind of interaction, isn't a question, doesn't create a discussion underneath it in the comments, then you'll see it, like maybe a Facebook employee will see it, and the person who's watching the tumbleweed go through the back of their garden might see it.
Yeah. Good. Thank you for that. And actually, just on that point, we broadcast live as well as on YouTooSpain on Mondays. It goes out on the Facebook group and the Facebook page, so you can watch it on any of those ones. But I'd say watch it on YouTube if you can, because I think you can get on the chat, on the live chat there, and I'm not sure you can if you're on Facebook. But there you go. Oh, Jason says he's still waiting for his last prize. The last time he won one. I'll get in touch with Chris from Upsticks. He's our prize giver, and see. And he's actually on the show next week as well. So back on our cozy family settee next week. So let's tell you about this. He's such a mine of information, Chris, and he said, why don't we just open it up as an open Q&A next week? He said, ask me anything. So what could possibly go wrong with that? Let's try and stick to questions about moving to Spain, though, as much as possible, more or less. But if you have any other questions, then
is Idris Elba going to be the next Bond?
No, that's a hot question. Yeah,
save that for him. See what he says.
That's a good one. Maybe if I use that as the title of the thing, maybe I'll get lots and lots more viewers. And the wife says hello. By the way, she wasn't out here on the settee today. Actually, she was. She was on the live chat as U2 Yoga, I think, and you can join her any day, any time on her virtual yoga mat for yoga and meditation, because she's the YouTube channel U2 Yoga, and I've put the link down below with the other ones. So we're going to finish there now, and somebody push the vacuum cleaner around because you've all been dropping crumbs from the chocolate chip cookies again, you mucky pups. And so let's all head into the pool while I say goodbye, and thank you so much to Matthew and Mayrick and Jason. You've been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye for now. So I'll say peace and love, and let's have one more little dance before we go. I've got to find out a little. Here, let's play the tune. Everybody dance. Bye for now.